Hi guys, I'm here and welcome to the training room. Today my new Wahoo Kickr18 has arrived and I'm going to tell you all about it. I still have the Kickr17 here, and before you ask, I'm not upgrading because there's something wrong with the 17. I'm only upgrading it because a friend wanted to buy one and I offered him my used Kickr17, and then I could upgrade to an 18. I would also like to point out that I'm a Wahoo dealer, so this trade basically cost me nothing, so keep that in mind. So what are the differences between the Kickr17 and the Kickr18? Well, actually the units seem to be quite similar in design, and yes, they very much are, but there are some key differences here and some key features of the new Kickr18. So basically the only downside of the Kickr17 compared to, let's say, the Tex Neo, its arch rival, is the noise. The thing can get quite noisy, definitely noisier than a Drivo, for example, that I had earlier, and noisier than the Tex, because of the way it basically transfers power from your cassette to your flywheel. And the reason for that is it uses a Gates belt with, this is basically a toothed belt or a shaped belt, and the part that actually makes the noise is this little drive wheel that connects, well, the belt to this portion of the trainer, and of course the teeth engaging the belt are making the noise. This is quite a small diameter, so it's always going to have high RPM, so that's where the high-pitched noise comes from. Yeah, apart from that, the rest of the construction and the main features are pretty much the same. With the Kickr18, you still get the super sturdy tubular steel frame that's adjustable for every single wheel size that you can imagine. That's a big upside to the Kickr. The legs are still nice and foldable with this press-in mechanism. You still get a cassette included, although now it's perhaps a bit of a nicer unit. It's a Shimano 105 5800 11-28 as opposed to a SRAM PG 1130 11-26 cassette. I like this change because these low-end SRAM cassettes tend to be rather noisy, even when used with SRAM chains, so it's a welcome change. I've already taken my spacers off from this trainer to the other one. I use a 0.2mm spacer just to keep my gear adjustment in line with what I use on my wheels, so I don't have to readjust them and get trouble-free shifting and noise-free running. The differences are, well, when you look at them up close, they're quite obvious. So this disc part that drives the belt, that's completely different. On the 18, it's one piece, a much larger diameter. It's a steel unit. On the 17, it's still a steel unit, smaller diameter, of course, with the tooth profiles in, but it has two plastic covers attached with little screws. This one, though, doesn't have a cover, it's just a black steel unit. And the big difference here is the way that the power is transferred from this bit to the flywheel. So now it uses a belt with longitudinal grooves, like, for example, the alternator in your car, and this is responsible for the noise-free running and the noise-free power transfer. Because of this, however, as you can see, if you want to transfer the same amount of power without having the tooth profiles on, you have to increase the diameter, increase the tension in the belt. So that's why these changes were necessary. Of course, the other wheel, the small wheel responsible for the noise, is now also smooth, and thus there's nothing to make a noise here. The other thing that's gone bigger and wider is the flywheel, and you can actually feel that if you just spin it like this. There's much more inertia to it, which should help with ride feel, help with braking, erg mode, resistance, etc. There are other minor changes as well that aren't really mentioned. So the quick release you get is a bit of a more modern design compared to this retro all steel skewer. Hopefully this one be just as stable. Then it has a completely different power adapter. Hopefully this one will turn off when you leave the trainer and don't have to unplug it. Also, you do get a cadence sensor now, a wireless cadence sensor, accelerometer based. You get, of course, power cords, US I think and European, and you get tracks adapters for it as well. Okay, so I've just finished my first ride on the Wahoo Kickr18. I've done a 2-hour ride, from which 1.5 hours was interval training with different kinds of intervals in erg mode to test that out, and then also a bit of riding afterwards in regular sim mode. And I have to be honest, I wasn't really expecting it to be any better than the Kickr17, but I was wrong. I don't normally fret about road feel and ride feel of trainers. I had a lot of trainers. I had the first Elite Fluid trainers. I had an Elite Duretto, Elite Drivo, the Kickr17, and now this. And compared to the 17, there is a subtle but very noticeable improvement in the ride quality. It just feels, I don't know how to describe it, it just feels smoother, you know? That kind of inertia that you get from the larger flywheel is definitely present, and you can feel that when riding along. The resistance builds in a smoother fashion when you stand out to the saddle. It feels better, and also in erg mode it feels a tiny bit different, it reacts differently. I'm not really sure if it's entirely down to the trainer or just the Zwift update that's been recently released. The main thing is it's not as aggressive if you're reaching the top of the power you are aiming to get in erg mode. It doesn't just start to spin wildly, or in the lower end doesn't just clamp on suddenly with a lot of resistance. So it feels a bit more predictable, a bit nicer to ride in general. And I think, yeah, that's probably mostly down to the flywheel. Now the noise, there's just no noise whatsoever. Everything you're going to hear is your chain. In my case, that's quite loud because I use Vox chains. They tend to run a little bit louder. Also, probably my SRAM chain here isn't the best match for the Shimano cassette, but I think it's a tiny bit better than the old cheap, super cheap SRAM cassette that they put on the older ones. So definitely an improvement in this regard. The negatives, you still have to unplug the unit. It won't turn off by itself no matter how long it's left on there. And other than that, I can't really think about anything. The 17 was a very good unit indeed, and this is not a huge improvement, but definitely there's something to it. Now I'm aware that there have been some problems with the reliability of these issues. I've checked it out. What I have here now in the stock, there are 5 units of these Kickr18s. I've managed to, well, with a lucky hand, I've picked one that doesn't do the clicking and squeaking noise at the flywheel. Unfortunately, one of my customers has, so we're going to resolve that with the upgrade kit or the repair kit. It's not a big job, but still a bit irritating when talking about a high-end product. And yeah, it's a niggle, but if it's resolved, then it's an excellent, super quiet, very stable unit with a very nice ride feel, very practical as well, with the handle, with the foldability, with the adjustability for different bikes. So overall, I think it's a top contender, definitely, and it's a good chunk cheaper than, for example, the Neo 2 as well. And of course, that doesn't have the features I've just mentioned. Another thing I've mentioned, I've already talked about this upper flywheel. It's all metal now, no plastic casing. I think that actually that's not as good as I've thought, because when you are putting the bike in and out, it's, you know, when you have this plastic sheeting on there, I think it's less likely to damage the bike if you're not careful. But yeah, that's just a minor observation there. It doesn't subtract anything from the functionality. Okay, so this is my first impression of the Wahoo Kickr18. Should you upgrade from a Kickr17? Now, unless you are particularly picky about your ride feel, or the neighbors call the police every time you're on the trainer because of the noise, then no, not really, because the 17 is a very nice unit to start with. But if you're starting from scratch and you're in the market for a high-end direct drive smart trainer, then it's a top pick for sure. Okay, if you want to know more about the stuff that I use and my bikes, etc., and don't forget to tune into our channel and subscribe. It's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.